Hello everybody, Calamari here. Hope you guys are having a great day. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. You probably don't know, but I am actually an author. Yep, I've written a book series on Wattpad, and it's called The Throating Chronicles. And today I decided I was going to narrate the first book. There's 3 books, it's a trilogy, and in this video I'm going to read through the first one. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy. Prologue. Hello readers, this is Calamari. You've probably clicked on this book for the sole reason of The Throating Chronicles. What kind of decrepit, pathetic author would come up with that? I gotta see how much this sucks. You may also take the name as, oh, I see, this must be an adult book. Well, hate to break it to you, but you're wrong. No, this is simply an offbeat comedic adventure catered to an extremely specific sense of humor, crafted to be impossible to apply logic or practical principles to. So, I offer my piece. Why not give it a glance? Come on, maybe you've just stumbled upon the most unique piece of literature you'll ever live to read. On the contrary, you might have found an ill-written, senseless, thought-depraved prune of an attempt at comedy. Now, you and I both know there's only one way to put that to the test, but kiddoms, that's your choice to make. Enjoy. Chapter 1. Where the Young Ones Go. This isn't the tale of some fictional horror story. This isn't just a twisted man's fantasy, a corrupted writer's bedtime fable. No, this is the tale of a man with a great passion, the will to follow the one thing he loved, and how he overcame his greatest challenges. This is the story of Peter Babythroat. I'm sitting there lying in bed. It's about 5 a.m. I stare up at the moon-cast ceiling, thinking about my stresses of work, saying to myself, one day this won't be how I live. One day I'll be free from all the worries of working. One day. I start to doze off, hoping to get some sleep as my alarm goes off at 7:30. It's just the worry has made me restless. I'm finally able to close my eyes and drift into a not-so-far-away dreamland. I've been having this reoccurring dream. It's a good dream. In fact, it's the best dream. A dream of my favorite thing in the world. You see, I've always loved babies. There's something about those little prepubescent eyes that I just can't get enough of. I've never been able to put my finger on it. I've actually been kicked out of baby showers for people I don't even know. I go and hope that I can satisfy my undying thirst to see a baby. But anyways, I'm dreaming about a baby photo shoot when suddenly the desperate cry of my alarm goes off. My alarm has always made this horrible high-pitched whine. I am now woken to not the sight of the moon peeking through the windows, but the fluorescent shine of the sun. So I get out of bed and do my usual routine to get ready for work. I brush my teeth, take a shower, get dressed, eat my breakfast, and before I know it, I'm ready for work. I get into my car with my briefcase and start driving to the dreaded office I have to call my workplace. When I get inside the building, I'm greeted by the lady at the front desk. Then, as I head to the elevator, a woman, with something wrapped in the cloth, walks in and stands beside me. "Floor 3, please," she says. So I push the button, and we stand there quietly, waiting for the door to open. But something is off. That smell in the air. Could it be? Yes! That smell is unmistakable to me, the aroma of infantile food that has been regurgitated up. I look down, and it is none other than a ripe, plump, juicy baby. I can hardly contain my excitement. I'm wiggling back and forth to contain my joy. So I calmly say, "What a girthy baby you have there." The woman awkwardly thanks me, and as the door opens, I start walking to my desk. The woman trips, and I turn around at the perfect second. The baby slips out of the woman's arm and flies into the air, and just like in the movies, the baby slides into my mouth, and for the first time in my life, I feel something very odd. I feel like I couldn't be happier, so without even thinking, I swallowed the baby whole, but then my senses kicked back in. I get so flustered with embarrassment that I run back to my car and drive home. While I'm sitting on my couch, thinking about the delicious joy I felt the baby kick inside of me, over and over again. So to solve this problem, I go into the kitchen and grab a knife. I stab myself in the stomach 3 times, puncturing the baby's brain, heart, and lungs. Right away, the kick ceased. Much better, I thought to myself. But now another problem arose. I had an unbearable hunger for a baby. Maybe this is why I've always liked babies so much. Needless, I had an appetite that needed to be satisfied. I drove to the nearest daycare and checked in as one of the triplets' fathers. So I went to the room where all the infants were playing and picked up 3 kids. I took them to the back bathroom with me and closed the door. Within 30 seconds, I had swallowed all 3 babies whole, like pills. And from that day on, I would go from town to town, nursery to nursery, and consume every baby I could get my hands on, wrapping the entirety of my throat until the infants were one with me. Chapter 2. An American Throating. I've been on my throating spree for about 2.5 weeks now. I've cleared the entire state of Ohio and most of Michigan of their babies, and I see no reason to stop. I will admit that a few times on my quest I have thought to myself that what I've been doing might not be right, but as soon as I try to mentally withdraw myself from the concept of babe harvesting, I go into involuntary panic, so I've ruled out stopping. I'm walking down a desolate country road. All I know is that I'm somewhere in Indiana. The only thing that I have to comfort me is the stars and my sack of babies. I pull out one of the little children and flicked it in the neck to see how responsive it was. I like my babies hot and squirmy. There was just a slight flinch, so I knew it was still alive. I gave it a quick gulp. I instantly felt the energy from the baby surge into me. I've been walking for several hours now. I'm starting to get tired of the scenery of field and crop. I finally see a distant sign. As I approach the sign, I'm able to make out what looks like the word Indiana. But as I get closer, I can see that it actually says Indianapolis. I was on the outskirts of Indianapolis. Finally, I would be able to get back to civilization, and it couldn't come a moment too soon. I'm starting to run low on babies. As I get closer to the city, more and more cars pass by. It became almost constant. As I'm walking, I hear a loud roar behind me. I turn around and I see a shuttle bus. Being such a large vehicle, it was going fairly slow. As I got closer, I can see that it wasn't just a public transportation vehicle. No, this was an infant daycare bus. The entire bus was colored with vibrant flowers and sprawling rainbows. On the side of the bus, it showed the characters in Hebrew text. It must have been a Jewish daycare. The beast within me awoke. I felt an irrational urge to put some babies in my mouth and swallow. I had to do something. I hastily look around on the ground for a possible projectile. I find a palm-sized rock and pick it up. I wait for the bus to drive directly by me and I throw it. The rock went through the passenger windshield and shattered the driver's jugular. The rock came out the other window. As the rock was exiting the vehicle, I noticed it was on fire. What a throw, I say to myself. The bus starts swerving all over the road. It finally tips over, destroying 15 other cars in its fall. All of the destroyed cars had just divorce stickers in the rear windshield. The bus spontaneously combusts in the middle of the road. Panicked, I ran over to the destroyed vehicle and started searching for my prized dinner. All of the babies but 2 were incinerated in the explosion. The 2 babies that were still alive were extremely charred. Luckily, they couldn't cry or scream because the heat from the fire had fused their mouths together. I get ready to double chug the babies, and both slip out of my hand and fly roughly 75 to 100 feet in the air. Both babies splat onto the pavement. Now every baby from the bus was dead. I pick up the 2 burnt infants and consume them in 5 seconds. Those babies were perhaps the hunkiest I've ever tasted. Their meat was so tender and moist that, combined with the burnt skin and hair, simply delectable. I vomited up the 2 babies just so that I could re-throat them. Just as good the second time around. My urge only grew stronger. I became fueled by the thought of getting my greasy, hairy hands on my next baby. I bet Indianapolis has plenty of babies, and that's where I was headed. Straight for the baby haven. Chapter 3. Epidemic in Indiana. I'm around the downtown area of Indianapolis looking for a place to grab a bite to eat. Even though I pretty much only devour babies now, I figured that getting a taste of the city could be fun. I'm in Mile Square looking for a nice restaurant. It's been a long time since I've been to a big city like this. There's this energy that such a busy area has. I walk around a building and there's more people and more shops, but through all this commotion, I see a place I haven't seen in a long time. It's a country epicure. My dad used to get cakes from there all the time. Back in the day, he was a bodybuilder. So he would get these slices of triple-layer chocolate cake and create these super high-calorie shakes with them. He called them cake shakes. He would take 5 eggs, yogurt, a whole chicken, and a slice of country epicure cake. Then he would mix it together in a blender and drink it. It's actually a funny story. Before Annie killed my dad, he would tell me these stories about his cake shakes. He told me that he used to be a bus driver for retarded kids. He said that one time he slammed a cake shake before he drove his bus route, and during the middle of driving, he had to take a crap. So what he did was he set newspaper down in the floor of the back of the bus and blasted diarrhea on it, while the kids just sat there and bobbed their heads back and forth. Those were the good days. But I wasn't really in the mood for something sweet. I was in the mood for something meaty. I was able to find a little burger bistro along the strip. That sounded good enough. So I walked in and sat myself down at a table. After a few minutes, a waitress came to me and asked what I wanted to drink. I'll just have water. Okay, I'll get that to you in a second. She then walked into the kitchen. I'm sitting at my table looking around. It was an open restaurant with wood walls and dim lighting. It had a nice cozy vibe to it. The waitress came back to give me my water. She sets it down on the table, and as she walks away, I pull out my special jar of hunk. At least that's what I called it. It was actually a jar of powdered baby that I had cooked up. It adds a little extra girth to any non-baby dishes that I might find myself eating. I also added a little sugar to the baby water to give it the sweet essence of babe. Just about that time, I finished my baby aid. The waitress came over to get my order. Have you decided yet on what you want to order? She said calmly. You know, darling, I was going to ask you for help. What's the meatiest thing you have? Our burger is pretty good. Well, then give me a burger. About 10 minutes later, she comes back to my table with my burger. I'm looking at the disc of meat sitting in front of me. It looked average, but it was nothing compared to the sweet nectar of babies. I had just the thing to add to my meal. I pull out a small folding case out of my pocket and set it on the table. I opened it up to reveal an array of various pieces of baby skin. Looking at my selections, I smell each flap of flesh individually. I eventually decided on the African American piece. I take the top bun off my burger and position the juicy skin on top. I pick up my customized meat meal and get ready to dig in. The smell of the cold skin was so appetizing that when I opened my mouth, I instantly started salivating all over the people sitting in the booth across the restaurant. Oops. Sorry, folks. Hope you like your fries extra juicy. I tried to say somewhat apologetically, but I realized that the saliva had already killed everybody at the table. Oh man, that's a shame. I continued to throat my burger. While I was watching the TV the restaurant had hanging on the wall, the news came on. Breaking news! Baby-crazed man on the loose. The TV then displayed a picture of me. This man, Peter Valentino, commonly dubbed as Peter Babythroat, is running loose on the streets. If you see this man, the federal government has given full authority to shoot him on the spot. I panicked. I knew I had to get out of the city. I dropped my burger and made a run for the door, but the manager came out of the kitchen with a shotgun. He tried to shoot me, but I threw my sack of babies at him, and it absorbed the blow, completely spoiling the entire sack. I ran for the closest train station I could find. Luckily, being in downtown Indy, there were stations all over. I ran down the stairs and up to the ticket booth. I didn't have time to wait to buy a ticket, so I threw a baby at the booth, shattering the glass and killing the clerk. I ran after the train. The door was closed. I could hear the police close behind me. I had only seconds to respond, so I muster up everything inside of me and projectile vomit 4 babies on the steel door, shattering it completely. I run into the train and instantly starts moving. I had successfully evaded my crisis. Where this train was taking me? Only time would tell. Chapter 4. The Tracks to Somewhere. Looking around the train, I noticed there was a handful of people on it with me. Only about 5 or so. But it was a fairly average train. There were rows of seats along the walls and advertisements plastered all over. I walked to the front of the train looking for a restroom. I haven't used it since I started engulfing those succulent babies. I see a door that has a male symbol on it. The lock slider on the knob said unoccupied, so I opened the door to a sight of a man changing a baby's diaper. It's been so long since I've last seen a baby. About 2 hours. Neither the man nor the baby seemed to notice that I was staring at them. Looking at the baby's eyes, my saliva glands started squirting. Soon enough, my entire clothes were soaked. As quietly as possible, I extend my throat towards the man. When the throat was close enough, I wrapped it around the man's head, Still unaware of what was happening, the man continued to change the baby's diaper. With my throat completely wrapped around the man's head, I squeeze as tight as I can, causing a brown fluid to vigorously spray out of every orifice in his body. I let go and retract my throat back into my face. The man fell to the ground, dead, leaving the baby lonesome, ready for the girthing. I pick up the baby and sniff its back and neck. It smelled ripe. The baby then proceeded to vomit onto me. I didn't want to waste all of the sweet cream, so I opened up my mouth so I could absorb all the goodness. It tasted like chocolate cake mixed with yogurt and chicken. After the baby was finished puking, I immediately snapped its neck. I pulled up my shirt and crammed the baby onto my belt, for later use. I'm standing there with my baby hanging off my waist. Then, suddenly, I feel the urge to poopy. I flopped down my pants and sat down on the pot. I'm sitting there, trying to push it all out. There's something blocking the exit hole. I think it was babies. I push, and I push, and I push. Nothing. So I pull a flask of boiled baby out of my skin sack and drank the concoction, and I instantly felt the juice working. I gave one last forceful push, and everything came out. I released what must have been 3,500 babies into the toilet. Whole limbs were flying, large pieces of skin had splattered onto the ceiling. It felt amazing, though, like a weight had been lifted off of me. I was empty now, and ready to throat. I tried to flush the toilet, but it was so full of digested baby that it just overflowed. And the thing is, it didn't stop. Within about 45 seconds, the entire train car floor was covered in innards and moisture. I discreetly walked back to my bench and sit myself down. I'm sitting there thinking about when I could throat my next baby, when a man behind me gets up and walks over to me. He stands by my bench. This made me very uncomfortable. I pretended to not notice and just stared out the window. "I know who you are." I decided that the best thing to do was play dumb. I don't know what you mean." "Don't be an idiot. Peter Babythroat, under the federal government, I'm going to kill you." The man pulled out a rotating 10-barrel flamethrower. This man really was going to kill me. But I couldn't let that happen. There was too many babies left to consume. Before he could blast me with the flames, I was able to manage to pull a baby off my belt and boomerang it. It hit the man flat in the stomach and went straight through him. The baby burst through the side of the train and went into the concrete of the train tunnel. The man fell to the ground and turned into a milky liquid. The other people in the train were just staring at me in awe, completely speechless. I could see the pavement on the other side of the tunnel cracking. All of a sudden, the baby burst through the wall and came back into the train. It hit all 4 other passengers in the head, causing each person to shatter and then burst into flames. I picked up the concrete-covered baby and swallowed it whole. The train started moving upwards. I was headed above ground. The train reached a plateau, and I looked out the window. I could see desert mountains and buildings. I looked over to the other window and saw a beach. Where was I? The train was approaching a stop. The door opened, and all of the flaming bodies and liquid babies poured out of the train car. From the speakers in the ceiling, I heard, "Welcome to Los Angeles." I stepped out of the train. I heard a crunch below me and looked down. I had stepped on a baby's head. As I headed out of the station, I looked in front of me. City as far as the eye could see. As much as I wanted to stick around, I knew I had to get to the mountains and hide. So I started my journey through the city to isolation. My quest for babies continued. Chapter 5. The Final Throwdown. It was very warm in Los Angeles. It felt like it was around 70 or 80 degrees. I was walking down a shopping strip. It was actually kind of nice. There was palm trees along the sides of the street. All of the little shops and restaurants had a nice rustic look to them. But due to my recent exposure at the burger joint, I had no time to shop for fun. I needed to find a disguise. I looked around for a place that might sell clothing or something to cover my face. I wasn't seeing anywhere that I thought would work, so I continued into the city. After walking along the streets and across intersections for a while, I found myself in yet another part of the city. Looking around, it was about the same, stores and apartments, except for the one sign that seemed a little out of place. I walked up to it and it said La Brea Tar Pits and Museum. I thought to myself, this could be it. Nobody would be able to recognize me. I walk up to the check-in booth. "Hello, what can I get for you?" the clerk at the counter said. "I need to get in, but I don't have any money." "Well, I'm not sure what to tell you. We don't give free admission passes." "What can I do to get in?" "You can come back and bring money and I'll be happy to let you in." This wasn't going to work. I had no way to get money, but I had a plan. "Okay," I quietly said. I turn around and start to walk away. About 30 feet from the booth, I turn and start running towards it again. In a full-out sprint, I reach through the glass of the booth and grab the clerk by the face. I yanked and sent him flying into the air. I watched him catapulting through the sky and saw he landed on the roof of a nearby Kmart. The building started smoking out from the doors, and within about 10 seconds, the entire shopping complex was on fire. I step through all of the broken glass to find myself staring at a panel of buttons. I see a yellowish-orange button that says "Open" on it. So I press the button, and sure enough, the gate to the tar pits opens. Walking in, I see the museum building, and to the left, I see the pits. The pits were fenced off. Another pity setback. I walk up to the closest pit, and I'm face to face with an 8-foot barbed wire fence. I had no option but to jump over, so I squat down and get ready to jump. I hurled myself over the fence. I caught my leg on the barbed wire and completely ripped off all the skin, leaving a skin sock in the shape of my leg hanging from the fence. I'm now standing on the edge of the tar pit, my leg oozing raw muscle fluid. I get onto my knees. My face inches away from the boiling tar. This was the last time my face would ever look human. From now on, I would be covered in an indistinguishable black mask. But it was for the better. I couldn't risk anybody recognizing me again. I dipped my face into the hot, hunky, viscous cream. I could feel it fusing with my face, seeping into my skin, completely engulfing my cells. I removed my face from the tar. It was done. Nobody would ever know me as Peter Babythroat anymore. I looked down at my exposed leg. This was going to be an issue. If I wanted to get somewhere fast, so I dipped my greasy log of muscle and bone into the tar. I removed it, and just like that, my leg had a new skin on it. I jumped back over the fence and headed for the exit. As I was walking, I noticed that a woman was holding a small infant on the railing of the main tar pit. My feelings came out. I hadn't eaten a baby since the train, and I was really feeling it. I inconspicuously walked by them, acting like I was there to see the pit as well. As I get right by the woman, I push the baby out of her hand. He rolls along the ground and sinks into the boiling tar. The woman screams, but before she was able to attract any attention, I open my pink and black mouth and vomit a special tar and baby acid ball at her face. It hit her so hard in the head that she fell over, dead. I saw that she was excited when she fell, but I flew over the rail and slid to the base of the tar. I stuck my hand in the tar, searching for the baby. I felt the head and pulled it out. The tar had gotten to the baby so much that it was no longer a baby. It was just a shriveled tar-covered head and dangling spine. Usually I would eat 25 to 35 babies as a snack, but this was better than no baby meat at all. I swallowed the little spine slug. It was simply delicious. I then headed out to the streets. I knew that I needed to get going. Just having a boiled baby in tar, some people may have gotten suspicious. I saw a bus stop along the street and looked at it to wait for a ride out. The bus showed up not shortly after. I looked at the bus stop list posted on the side of it. One of the places on the list said San Gabriel Mountain Stop. This was perfect. That way I could come back to the city every week to collect a stash. I get onto the bus and it was mostly empty. Actually, it was only the driver. I go to the back row and sat down at what was now an empty sack of babies. The bus door closed, and the bus started moving. I was so tired, the lack of babies had made me weak. The only thing that I could do was sleep. I drifted off pretty quickly and started dreaming. I was at a dinner table with my father, and there were various fruits and breads on it, but in the middle of the table was a metal plate with a domed lid over it. My dad looks up at me and says, "Well, son, reveal the main course." I grabbed the lid and lifted it up, but instead of there being a turkey or a ham under it, there was a stuffed baby covered in cream. My dad just had that look of shock on him, but I couldn't have been happier. I shoved my face into the baby's stomach and ripped a chunk out, causing white sauce and fingers to spray all over the other food. "Peter, what are you doing?" my dad said, terrified. Then I woke up. I was sweating, and there was tar seeping out of my good foot. Shaken up, I look out the window and see that I was no longer in the heart of Los Angeles. Its skyline was now just a blur in the horizon. I was now in the mountains. I was free now. Everything I had done, all of the millions of babies I had eaten, all of the houses and cars I had destroyed. Nobody would know. The bus comes to a stop. The driver says, "Okay, we're here." I got out of the bus and I instantly confronted by the smell of fresh mountain air. I turned to thank the bus driver. "Hey man, I really appreciate it." The driver didn't reply. He just stood up and walked out of the bus. I was now standing face to face with the man. "How could you?" the man said to me. What do you mean, sir?" "Don't play dumb, you freak. You're not fooling me." "I know who you are, Peter Valentino." I was baffled. How could this man see through my disguise? "How do you know that? You can't see my face." "I watched you throw the baby into the tar on camera. It's over, baby throat." I wasn't going to let this happen. It couldn't end here." You have no idea. Babies have made me virtually immortal. You don't have any clue of what I'm capable of." "Oh, I have plenty idea. You're a monster. You've throated millions. I can't let you continue on your rampage. Peter Babythroat, I hope you've made your peace." This was not the time for me to go into the battle of my life. I didn't have the energy to fight, but it seemed I had no choice. I mustered up all of my big babe essence and prepared for a show that was about to come. The man pulled out 2 tachis of his ears. He jumped forward and swung at me. I made a swift downward evasion. I turned to make a strike at him, but he was nowhere to be seen. All I saw was the trees along the near hillside blowing faintly in the light breeze. I then feel a sharp tingling feeling. Looking down, I see the head of a blade sticking through my abdomen. The sword retreats from me, and I hear a voice. "Was it worth it? Do you feel like you lived a complete life?" But this wasn't the voice of the bus driver. This was the voice of me. And the answer to my own question? No. I've killed millions, and for what cause? My own pleasure? I had become a monster. I had defeated the purpose of life itself. I had lived only to end lives. And now, my own ended. I can't say I didn't have it coming. I fell to the ground, cradling my innards. All that I lived for was wasted. I could feel the life slipping away from the grasp of my hands. The man holding his sword's waiting for me to pass. I start to close my eyes, slowly drifting off into the eternal state of death. Everything goes dark. I died. It was actually kind of peaceful. It was like floating on my back in the middle of a pool where gravity was non-existent. I had a forever to think about what I could have done differently. How could I have helped this world? What could I have accomplished? As I float there in the midst of darkness, I see the slightest sliver of light. I feel myself being pulled towards it. The light was getting bigger, and as I got closer and closer, I could see a familiar sight. And the next thing I knew, I heard screaming, awful screaming. I was on the table in a white room with a man and what looked like a nurse. "Push, Annie, push! Oh God! The next thing I knew, I was freely lying on the table, covered in blood and chunks of dog food. A piece of intestinal tract was stuck on the ceiling. I fell and it flopped onto my face, nearly choking me. But something was different. I wasn't the Peter I used to be. I was much smaller and much more obese. "Oh, Greg, it's a boy," I heard the woman's voice say. "Yeah, I can't believe it. We're the parents of Peter Valentino." Well, guys, that is the end of the first Throating Chronicles book. I hope you guys enjoyed, despite me using a really cheap microphone, so my voice is probably not coming through very well. But despite all that, I do hope that you found it at least somewhat amusing. And, stay tuned for more of my videos. I will be reading the rest of these books. And a little update, I know my very first YouTube video was me announcing my upcoming book, The Thick Boys of Winklesniffer Lane. I said that the release date was going to be September 30th. That is obviously not going to be the case because it is September 28th, and I finished 2 chapters, so I'm sorry, I made a promise that I couldn't keep. It's just big boy's busy, you know? So, I just appreciate every one of you guys that watches my videos, and I am excited to be able to create the content that is going to be coming up. So, until next time, hope you guys have a great day.